애플리케이션 강의입니다. 이번 강의를 해주실 강사분은 UPA 3기 졸업생이자 또 이렇게 여기 그 회계본부에서 또 일을 하고 있습니다. 네, 여러분들 보시기 위해서 또 정성을 들이시고 강의를 준비하셨고 또 이 워크샵을 위해서 뒤에서 가장 많이 수고를 해주신 강사분입니다. 네, 여러분들 강의 들을 때 마지막 시간이니까 끝까지 강의를 들으시고 오늘 하루 또 참 부모님의 DP를 원리 강의를 또 여러분들께서도 자기 것으로 나만의 DP 톡을 만들 수 있는 기반과 영적인 많은 음식이 됐으면 좋겠습니다. 네, 여러분 그럼 강사님 김수호 강사님을 모실 때 큰 박수 드리겠습니다.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome. So this is the 9th lecture. It is the last lecture of the Divine Principle Talk, DP Talk, and then in the afternoon you guys will be doing another presentation. So yeah, I'll be following up on the same topic as Yuri, the one before, about the Messiah and the second coming. It's actually a very difficult topic to apply in our lives, but I will do my best. And the way I did it, some of you guys who were part of the Songhwa GTGY know that I'm not really, I'm more of like an intellectually analytical type. So I'll be introducing a lot of true parents' words that I felt were important. And I would like to share like what I thought of what true parents meant. So yeah, some of you guys may agree, some of you may not agree, but then I hope that through this time that you guys could have another way of thinking about true parents' words. So let us begin. First, let me read from Divine Principle. It's the very first section of chapter 4. It says, "The Messiah comes to fulfill the purpose of God's work of salvation. God's purpose of creation was to be fulfilled with the establishment of the kingdom of heaven on earth. However, due to the human fall, we have built hell on earth in place of God's kingdom. Since the fall, God has been repeatedly working his providence to restore the kingdom. Being the history of the providence of restoration, human history's primary goal is to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth." This you guys already know, and it went over in the previous section. But essentially, Messiah comes to restore what was lost. In that sense, if Adam and Eve didn't fall, then personally, I don't think there would have been a need for the Messiah, right? Messiah is only necessary because of the fall. In that sense, in this current situation, Messiah is an absolute necessity. Everyone agrees on that, yeah? So, this one is actually very important in a way how we relate to the Messiah. It hits the point of how we as human beings need to relate with the Messiah, and it's part of the divine principle. It says, human beings thus have their own portion of responsibility. They can either fulfill it in accordance with God's will or fail to fulfill it contrary to his will. The nature of the fruits they bear depends upon whether or not they fulfill their portion of responsibility. Everyone knew this. Everyone knows from chapter 1, it talks about portion of responsibility. But this, in chapter 4, it mentions how the portion of responsibility relates with Messiah. It says, to send the Messiah is God's portion of responsibility. However, belief in the Messiah is the human portion of responsibility. This is very important. The Jewish people can either believe in the Messiah as God wished or not believe in him in opposition to his desire. In the end, it's God's duty, it's God's will, it's God's heart to save us all. But in the end, it depends on us. It depends on every single one of us, whether or not we follow that, whether or not we understand that, whether or not we believe in God. Yeah? So everyone agrees, this is a very basic stuff. So that's the Messiah. Messiah came to save us, but then we see true parents, right? We see true parents as true parents, and less so of Messiah. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because we are relatively young compared to our parents' age, and in that sense, we kind of missed out on true parents' progress through the providence. And by the time we were born, we already saw true parents as true parents, not as the Messiah, but they had fulfilled their role as the Messiah, and it's outlined here. This is True Father's words on what the role or mission of Messiah is. What will the Messiah do when he comes? In all of history, God never had a nation. The Messiah comes as a commander-in-chief in the fight to restore one nation to God, a nation with sovereignty, territory, and people. Then on that foundation, the Messiah will fight to restore the entire world, all the realms that expanded horizontally from the fallen ancestors to God. This is the mission of the Messiah. It's restoration, right? The key point here is that restore one nation, which is Cheoneguk, right? It's defined as Cheoneguk now. But in order to restore a nation, it's about a sovereignty, territory, and people. That's why we talk about the establishment of Cheoneguk, and then we talk about the settlement of Cheoneguk, and we talk about citizens of Cheoneguk. This is all related to the current province. But this is true parents. This is the Messiah that we know. And as I said, true parents have lived their life, and True Father already went to the spirit world, and before he went, you know, like the part of his last prayer, right? It says, I have accomplished everything. I have accomplished everything, and I have accomplished everything. In that sense, what does it mean? It means that the way I understand it is that as the Messiah, it's not his responsibility to restore all things, because in the end, it's human responsibility to accept heavenly parents and true parents. But as the Messiah, he gave us the model in which we need to follow. In that sense, the Messiah fulfilled everything that he needed to do. That's why True Father was able to pray in front of Heavenly Parent. To pray, I have accomplished everything. So what does True Father say? In Champobogyong, this is what he says. Ever since the fall, the bodies of all human beings have been dominated by sin, all kinds of sins. This is because human beings are connected to Satan's lineage. How can we deny it? The way to resolve this is to follow the course of indemnity. Now we, true parents, have paid off everything. We paid indemnity on all levels. The individual, family, tribe, people, nation, world, and cosmos. We indemnified them all, and thereby connected them all to the true lineage of God. True Father says this after he has accomplished it, right? It's not he is going to do this. It's not what true parents will going to do. He says that's what he has done. He has established God's lineage on earth. Then he says, this means you are now in the position of small messiahs. Who is you in this sentence? It's us. Us. It's blessed central families. Yeah? This means you are now in the position of small messiahs. As true parents, we belong to the lineage of God, not to Satan's lineage. Our root is different from yours. Your roots are on the side of Satan, while our root, the root of the parents, is with God. As true parents, we inherited God's original love, which is true love, and we are connecting it to you. Once you are engrafted with us, you belong to true parents, you belong to God. In essence, the Messiah's role is to restore, in that sense, is to restore the original lineage that God intended from Satan's lineage. Everyone understands that. So, in that sense, once we are engrafted into the lineage of God, it mentions about our position as small messiahs. I actually looked it up, and then the word small messiah, the Korean word is 소메시아. It literally means small, but it means like junior, right? Like a smaller form of like the capital M Messiah. Out of the three, the Cheonyeonguk, the books, it is only mentioned once in Chambumogyong, chapter 1, section 1, 2-26. I looked it up. And it's really funny because in that sense, it talks about our role only once as a small Messiah. But I'll start to define it as junior Messiah. What does it mean to be a junior Messiah? What does it mean? For me, it means that it's a way for us to inherit true parents. In every aspect of true parents, the third Adam and Eve, the restored Adam and Eve, the perfected Adam and Eve. In a way, they completed their mission as the Messiah, right? Both true father and true mother. In that sense, as their children, we have to inherit their success. As a children, we're supposed to inherit parents' position, right? It doesn't mean that we become the parents themselves. We ourselves, we become a parent. Do you understand the difference? Yeah? When we grow, when we make a family, we don't become exactly the same, true parents with capital T and capital P, but we become small true parents with like small true parents. In that sense, true parents are the Messiah. They are the second advent, and they have completed. Once we are engrafted into that, our role becomes to become small messiahs, junior messiahs, to inherit their legacy, their calling, and their success. At least that's how I see it. So, True Father talks we talk about messiahship many times. The most representative one is a tribal messiah, right? But here, in Cheonyeonguk, it says, if you go to the spirit world after 10 years or 100 years, and you say, Heavenly Father, I have come here. Since I know true parents, I will go to where they are. Do you think you can actually go there? It's a question. Just because we believed in true parents, can we go to heaven? He says, no, if you're not connected to the missions of the tribal Messiah, the national Messiah, the global and the cosmic Messiah, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven and live freely. That's what he says. So what does it mean to be connected to the mission of tribal Messiah, national Messiah, and global and cosmic Messiah? We all heard the term national Messiah, right? True Father named national Messiahs like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Yeah? And then we talked about tribal Messiah. What this means is the way, as I said, the way I understand it is I cannot see ourselves completing the same level of perfection as true parents. And maybe true parents knew that. And also, true parents already walked the formula course for human beings. We do not have to follow completely philosophy where true father or true parents went. In that sense, he kind of simplified our mission. As in, True Mother keeps saying you have to fulfill the heavenly tribe of Messiahship, the tribe of 430 couples, right? In that sense, he kind of made it easier for our perfection, our goal. Am I going too fast? Everyone understand? Okay. Yeah? In that sense, true parents walked the course of the Messiah as a restoration from individual level, family, tribe, people, nation. And he set the standard. But for us, we do not have to go every single step of the way. And in his last prayer, he mentions that the way we perfect ourselves is through the completion of the tribe of Messiahship. And that's why True Mother keep mentioning the importance of the heavenly tribe of Messiahship. But anyway, so in that sense, there's different aspects of Messiah's mission. That's my point here. Those people, some of our parents who got their mission as national messiahs, have the mission to restore that nation. But all of us, our parents and us, because of our parents, we're our parents' children, we have a duty to restore a tribe of 430 couples. Yeah? There are different levels of Messiah. That's what I wanted to mention. So, if there's different levels of Messiah, on a providential, on a public level, our minimum goal is to fulfill 430 couples for our tribe, our heavenly tribe. But, where do we start? Do we start by witnessing right away? How many people have witnessed already when witnessing? Okay. How many of you guys have spiritual children? How many of you guys have spiritual children who are blessed? Very good. I'm very surprised. So I have a spiritual child. He's very similar to me. He talks a lot and he doesn't, he's a very difficult person, like me. But anyway, through that, you learn many things. It's a reflection of yourself. But anyway, in order to understand our role, in order to understand true parents' role, we have our mission to witness. But beyond that, or even a step back, there is a realm, there is an area in which we could act as a Messiah because we represent true parents' lineage in the fallen world. All of us represent heavenly parents' lineage, right? Then in that sense, when we gather here, we're gathered here as one family under God. But unfortunately, once we go back to our home country, our community is smaller. The fallen society is bigger. In that sense, we ourselves represent, we may be the only representation of God's lineage at home, in our community. In that sense, your representation, your role as Messiah, it's not necessarily witnessing, but anything that you do is a representation of God, representation of a heavenly parent. And in the society that may be true, but even within your family, you could be the representative you could fulfill your messiahship in your family as well. So, what I mean is, in any way you give, in any way you successfully represent Heavenly Parent as a central figure, and you completely restore or you complete a task. You may have restored a small portion of the society back to God. Do you understand? And this could apply within your family as well. Not because your family is fallen, but it's about small steps towards restoring the whole. As in, okay, maybe I'm talking too much. I'll just give you an explanation. So, at home, right? Let's say your family, you're at home, and we're not all perfect, so maybe our house is dirty, right? And then your mom tells you to clean. You say no. Okay, you don't say no, you just don't do it. Yeah, you don't do it. But then maybe one day you're kundoke, and you read a part about the person who gives first becomes the subject. That always sticks in my mind in divine principle. The person who gives first is the subject. So anyway, you read it and then you're like inspired. So you start cleaning your house. And then through your example, maybe your siblings were like, oh, maybe we should clean. And then you clean. Now your house is restored because it's clean. It sounds like it's a stupid example, but in a sense, you were the Messiah. You were the central figure in which you made a change within your family. Yeah? Let's say at your school, maybe there's a kid who's, made fun of a lot. And then maybe you made fun of him in the past, but then one day you're like, man, I'm a bad person. I shouldn't do that. So you approach him or her, and then you make friends with them, and then you invite them in. Then you may become the Messiah for that person on a social sense, not in a spiritual or not in a providential sense, but for him to be able to connect to and make friends with other people. The point that I'm trying to make is that there's a heavenly providential level of messiahship that true parents represent and that the path that they walk. But in order for us to become the junior messiahs, we have to start somewhere. Do you understand? That may be in your community, your church community, or it could be within your family, it could be within your school. But for us to be able to fully inherit, we do not start up here. We start here. Everyone understand? Through the everyday life, through the very immediate areas within you, the changes that you make is the first steps of you becoming the junior messiah. And in the end, you guys are like late teens, early 20s, maybe like early 30s, like me. But we don't become the heavenly tribal messiah at our age. I don't think so. Maybe you can, some of you do. But then that plan for us to fully inherit true parents' legacy is through our lifetime. In that sense, we start somewhere, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. And what I want to emphasize is that I am 100% sure that you guys have had an experience where you guys are messiahs. It's just you guys didn't realize it. As I said, as a simple example of you start cleaning first. You wanting to change the environment. You wanting to do something good. That's, in a sense, it's a messianic step. So, the activity that we're going to do now is actually, I want you guys to take some time and look back. Even if it's a small, very small experience, it's okay. But I want you to take this time to think back of when you were in a position of position where you made a change. Everyone understands what I'm asking for? So think about the time that you stood in the central position, and then think about why you became in that position. There's in English, there's a term that hindsight is 20/20. Yeah? At that moment you might not have realized it, but when you take this time now, I'm sure there's a way in which God helped you be in that position at that time. Maybe it was in your church community, maybe it was at your family or within your friend group, but so think about how you came to that position and what was the outcome. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be a success story. Maybe you stood in that central position, but maybe the outcome was really bad and it broke down. Maybe you didn't achieve what you wanted to do. But then that is fine, because the third thing that I want you to talk about is how did that experience, like what can I learn from that experience? How can I prepare myself for the next time I stand in that position? So I want you to take some time and jot down these three, jot down the experience and jot down in this three form. And I'll let you know when you could share it with a person, but we'll take about 5 to 10 minutes about reflecting on the time when you had this responsibility, okay? BGM. 간단한 거. Everyone understands what you have to do? Perfect. If you have finished, I know it doesn't take too long. Try to share that experience with the person sitting next to you. It's a very, actually, relatively simple sharing, right? What kind of position you were in, how did you get to be in that position, and what was the outcome, and what you learned from it. So, yes. Pair up within your family, and oh, you guys are not done, right? Sorry, I'm not trying to rush you. It's okay, take your time. Right. I know you guys just started, and we might have to kind of wrap up quickly. It's a true sharing, right? Sharing. All right. So how's the sharing? I know I'm kind of interrupting, but I wanna conclude with a big bang. That's why. Everyone? Yeah? Yeah? Not yet? No, but I want to conclude. Sharing is important, but obviously what I would say is important. So actually, through what you were sharing, there's a point that I want to make, and that point, it's okay. Yeah, there's a point that I'm trying to make, and it's gonna come in the following thing, the following slides, and that is that as much as there is like our portion of responsibility, there is an expectation of us. This is a different concept. Is that we always talk about what we need to do, right? We always focus on what we need to do, what is our role, what is our mission. But then the next thing that I want to share is there's someone who watches over us, and then there's an expectation of us. And it's related to this thing, because as I said, we cannot start here. So we start here, right? But then in that sense, we grow. If we have successfully become a Messiah within our family, it doesn't have to be on the first try. But then once you stand in that position, then now that's the foundation for you to move a little bit bigger within your community. Not community as in, like school, but within your friends. Then maybe you could stand in a position within your like school. Maybe you could be in a bigger position within like your town. Then maybe you could step up into your like state or your province. Maybe you could become representative of your nation. So in that sense, it's a growing steps. But the conclusion that I want to make is that behind our steps, there's someone who has a very high expectation of us. And that's actually the person who said this. This is from the Peace Starts With Me Vienna 2018 Victory Celebration. She said this in Vienna. The decisions, I can do it and I will do it, are important. Is this so or not? I told you to fulfill your tribal Messiah responsibilities. Blessed families assuredly must do this work. You cannot go with only your own blessing. You are in a position to open the future for your ancestors, your children, and your descendants. You must live thinking of 3 generations. Heavenly parents' dream, true parents' wish. The wish of humankind is one human family under heavenly parent. A world of peace, the kingdom of heaven on earth. That kingdom of heaven will shine while true parents are still on earth. Do you understand? Do you understand? In 천성경, book 12, for us there is no stopping. We simply have to go forward. I hope and pray that you, true families throughout the world, will carry out your mission as new tribal messiahs with absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, and become the victors who inherit heaven's great blessings and heavenly fortune. Heaven has poured great blessings on us. All of us, including the second generation, need to fulfill that responsibility. Do you understand? Lastly, heroes must overcome difficulties and struggles. A person cannot be a hero under comfortable circumstances. It was the same for true parents. True parents began alone, but all of you have one another. That is why you must unite in heart with true parents and become the best in your respective fields. All 3 things True Mother has said, and all 3 things I read again and again, because it's a message for us, and it's an expectation that she has for us, because she specifically mentions second generations and youth and blessed families, which you guys are all part of, aren't you? In that sense, the way I see our relationship with the Messiah is through inheritance. We have to be able to inherit the mission of the Messiah, but not on a heavenly, not on a province of restoration level, but on an action, on a practice level of myself in my everyday life. And that True Mother is encouraging us to do that for ourselves. Anyway, it might have been a little bit of a stretch, but this is how I felt that us youth should relate to the Messiah, because the divine principle, the exposition of divine principle, it's been written many, many years ago, more than 50 years ago. So in that sense, the way we relate to it evolves as well. And in that sense, we don't depend on true parents as the Messiah, but we depend true parents as the parent of humankind. In that sense, the way we relate to it has to be in a parent-child relationship rather than like the Messiah and the Savior kind. Luckily for us, we kind of skipped that step. But in that sense, how do we inherit the Messiahship, the Messiah's mission of true parents? It's through the everyday practice, the everyday life that we live, we practice from everyday lives. So I hope that my talk was enough for you to start thinking about how we relate to true parents. And also, I hope it was a good way of giving you true parents words that you guys might not come in contact with. But anyway, all of you are junior messiahs. That's my conclusion. Whether or not you accept that responsibility is up to you. And whether or not, we become successful as the junior messiah is our portion of responsibility. Okay? Okay. Thank you very much.
감사합니다, 선생님. 그럼 지금부터 11시까지 쉬는 시간을 갖기 전에 여러분들 이제 DP톡 강의가 다 끝났습니다. 네, 그래서 팀 패밀리 리더들은 앞으로 와서 배지를 받아가시면 되겠습니다. Please come team leaders to